Hello, my name is Marian Lefferts and I work for the Consortium of European Research Libraries. Today's presentation is an outline of CERL Databases. I apologize for not being able to be with you in person this morning, and we've tried to create a somewhat hybrid session. I am available online this morning from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. and you can reach me via email marian.lefferts@cerl.org, or we can chat in a Zoom meeting and the details are on the screen here. Or if there are questions from the room, Marika can send those to me via WhatsApp and I can try and answer via that medium. Let's start with what is CERL? Now, I think many of you in the room already know the Consortium of European Research Libraries, but it might be good to remind you that it is a membership organization. That means that the funding for CERL comes from the CERL members' fees. We do not receive subsidies, and we do have the occasional project funding. In essence, CERL is a network of specialists and a hub for data. If you want to know more about CERL, you can consult our website, www.cerl.org, follow us on Twitter, or read many of the interesting blog posts that are contributed by colleagues in the CERL network. So if CERL is a network of data, a hub for data, then what kind of data are we talking about? All our data relates to early printed books and manuscripts. And all of it relates to European cultural heritage, although we take that quite liberally. And all of it is pre-1850. The data that we have is freely available. And in that case, we're talking about bibliographical records, authority records, thesaurus type records, structured descriptions of provenance information, and images, digital images of provenance evidence. So data is in a variety of containers, a variety of databases. And here I give you a timeline to show you when each of those was created. CERL itself was started in 1992, and the first database it launched was the Heritage of the Printed Book Database in 1997. In 2000, we added the CERL thesaurus to aid with navigation in the HPB. In 2010, we launched the Material Evidence in Incunabula database. From 2016, we have the environment and the ability to host other people's databases. In 2018, we launched the Provenance Digital Archive. In the Corona year 2021, we compiled a list of manuscript and archival resources that are available online. And this year, we hope to finalize the work on what we call the HPB provenance. Now, for each of these resources, I'm going to take them in turn and describe where is each database and what's in it. Is it authoritative and up to date? In what way is it connected to other CERL resources? May I use it? And how can I get at it? Maybe unexpected, but not unimportant is, could my own data go in there? Let's start with the HPB database, the Heritage of the Printed Book Database, launched in 1997. It is for early printed books, from the incunable period up to about 1850. There may be the occasional map and music material in it, but that's not the focus point of the database. Any other printed material, including broadsheets, you can find in here. It is contributed by libraries and library organizations in Europe and some in North America, and together from 21 countries. There are now 9 million records, and if you click on the tab, it will the tab here, which is content of the HPB database, you will be presented with a list per country of which institution contributed a data set. When you click on the orange link here, you will get the records that are for that institution. Now, some of them aren't for one institution, but are a combination of institutions, like, for example, the SUDOC database. And that means that we cover many more than 21 data sets, or even 45, but we think we have information for at least 200 libraries, if not more, representing their early printed collections together in one database. That context is a wonderful thing that is offered by the HPB. The other, I think, brilliant thing about the HPB is the absolutely detailed indexing. If it is stored in a separate cataloging field, it will more or less certainly be indexed. And that means that you can build complex queries and answer your research question. The database also contains links to digital copies, and each record has a stable identifier, so you can refer to the record in your research and in your publications. We keep it up to date through regular file uploads, and these uploads can be updates, so improving records that are already in the HPB, or new data loads, and that means that the scope of the HPB is expanded. The HPB is fairly tightly connected to the CERL thesaurus through searching interface. So if you are looking for a certain name or a printer or a place, we give you the option to retrieve variant forms, variant spellings for that name, and introduce those variants in your search, so that you expand the scope of the result sets, the results that are returned to you, and vice versa. When you see an HPB record, there are links for the names of places and persons that will take you to the relevant CERL thesaurus record, and that will give you additional information about the human or the place. When a certain imprint is available in a library in France and another one in Italy, and we upload the records for those institutions, the records are not deduplicated. But what we do try to do is to group records for a similar item or the same item, preferably, but sometimes we don't get further than similar. And in that case, you will see a notification in the record, like the one at the bottom of the screen, where it says 3 similar records, and you can go and explore whether they are for the same item. Now, how do I get at the HPB records? When you go to the top right of your screen, just underneath the Go To button, there is another line saying save/print info. When you click on that, you get to this particular screen, and it allows you to set the parameters for downloading records, full title or otherwise, in UTF-8 or ISO 8859/1. You can send these records to your email address or somebody else's, or scan the data to disk. And there is the ability to work with something called My Shelf. Now, you will have seen that it says download a maximum of 100 titles. That's in general not an awful lot. So if you need something, a data set, a specific data set that is larger than that, to contact me, and we can work with you. The CERL thesaurus, I've already mentioned it. It contains variant forms for corporate bodies, and that is organizations, monasteries, what else? Certain library collections. Variant forms for printers and publishers. So different spellings, Latin versions of the name, etc. Variant forms for places and for persons. It is based on authority files, a few large authority files in our CERL network, from the BNF, from ICU, from the National Library in the Netherlands, from G&D, the Gemeinsame Normdatei in Germany, and some others. It has about 1.4 million variant forms, and also actually information about provenance. And the CERL thesaurus is extensively linked to a number of other resources, for example, Wikipedia, to maps, to Calliope, to the G&D that I already mentioned. We have evidence about printers, devices, and images. And as I said, it supports the HPB, but also MEI and PDA. The data comes from authority files, but increasingly and very happily comes from project contributions. So if somebody is working on female printers in Flanders, or the book ownership of monasteries in Italy, or print workshops in Catalonia, for example, we get, and you build up a corpus of names and variant spellings and representations of these names. We are very grateful to receive them. And at the top of the screen, you see the URL for accessing the CERL thesaurus via the web interface. So how do I get to CERL thesaurus records? Well, via that web interface. The download limit there is 1,000 records. And again, if you need a bigger, more specific set, then contact me if you need that. There are a variety of formats available: RDF, XML or Turtle, JSON, YAML, and our CERL thesaurus internal format is based on Unimark authorities with a few variations. The CERL thesaurus is also published as linked open data. And the REST API, we hope to publish the documentation in the autumn of this year. This is the slide for the material evidence in Incunabula. It is very much created by our company secretary, Christina Dondi, who you see in the top right of the screen. She is at the University of Oxford as well as at CERL. The MEI database is closely connected to the CERL thesaurus and to the Incunabula short title catalogue. When the MEI was first created, it was hosted by CERL, and so the initial funding came from CERL. But there was a big impetus in funding from an ERC grant that Dr. Dondi was able to secure, which was the 15th Century Book Trade project. And that project ended with an absolutely brilliant exhibition, which was mounted at the Correr in Venice, but is now also available online if you go to printingrevolution.eu. So the material evidence in Incunabula database records provenances for incunables. And the interesting thing is that it does it in a chronological fashion. So you start with the very earliest provenance information you have for an item, and you describe that in detail. So an approximate or precise date, an approximate or more precise location, what you see, what type of evidence is it? Is it a book plate? Is it an annotation? Is it an ownership mark? Is it something related to the binding? And you do that per provenance evidence that you have in chronological order, and then you end at the most recent information available, which is typically where the item is now and how did it get there. The URL for accessing MEI is here, data.cerl.org/MEI. You can add the search, but don't have to. Provenance descriptions for incunables. We described books in autopsy. And on 30th of June, there were 15,666 editions, and over 60,000 copies were described. In that describing, the bibliographical information is taken from the ISTC, from the Incunabula Short Title Catalogue, and then you annotate that information. The ISTC links to MEI as well. So when you're searching in the ISTC and you find a record, on the right-hand side in the facets, there will be a a reference to an MEI record. Images for provenance evidence are stored in the PDA, and then a link is introduced into MEI. And MEI is linked to its own separate database, which is called Owners of Incunabula, which is also available through CERL. Contributors are all over Europe and beyond, and it's still a very active community, adding more and more descriptions for more and more editions. How can you download or contribute? Well, there are no downloads available from the web interface at the moment. What we hope to do in the autumn of this year is to implement the next version of AMPL, version 1.0, and that supports OpenAPI, the successor to Swagger. And from then on, it should be the default for all databases hosted by the Data Conversion Group, and that includes the MEI. In addition to the individual institution and some of the projects funded work done in the context of the 15th Century Book Trade project, there were 2 funded projects that contributed greatly to MEI. One was done to 1481. It's a copy census of a particular item of the Divina Commedia. And many libraries in Europe have worked together, or actually outside Europe as well, have worked together to contribute that data to MEI. And another Polonsky funded project called Monastic Libraries, which concentrated on smaller monastic libraries, large libraries, smaller institutions in Italy. And we would very much welcome more editors, more projects to describe the provenance evidence that they find in QDWOS. This is the provenance section in CERL, and Marieke van Delft, who you see here in the middle, created the provenance digital archive, and it lived in the context of archives. It contains digital evidence of provenances, so photographs of what you see in a book. You can upload them there, and they need to be short descriptions for each of these provenance evidences. So rough indication of age, rough indication of geography, and a good description of what you see and what sort of evidence it is. The Provenance Digital Archive is key in the sort of CERL network of data, in that it supports MEI. As I said, you can upload a provenance image there and then have the link in MEI Sustainable Link. And it will also function the same way in the HBB provenance database. All records have permanent identifiers, and all images are available as IIIF. And this year we're going to create a IIIF little server to make sure that they're available, the data is available. As I said, for the manuscripts working group, together we worked to bring together over 400 URLs in one PDF, and it is a list of web resources for manuscripts and archives. You can download it for free on the website, and it groups the material together in 4 categories. Institutional collections, so for one library, their collections organized by country. Beyond institutional collections, so when it's international or regional for a number of institutions together in one data set. We have investigated research tools and educational and other resources. If we have missed an important resource, then I would love to hear from you, and we can easily add it to the list. It's regularly updated. Hosted databases. So from 2016, we had the environment where we could start hosting data sets for others, and that has been quite popular. So now we host the Incunabula Short Title Catalogue, the Scottish Book Trade Index, Meg Ford's Early Book Owners Online data set, and Christina Smits from Göttingen, from Germany. She's worked on the Mainz Early Modern Academics libraries, and that information is together in one resource online. Soon we hope to host the short title Catalog Netherlands. And in preparation is HBB Provenance. That would be a work environment where you bring together a corpus of material relevant to your own research. What you do is pick up the bibliographical record from the HBB, pack it or copy it into the HBB Provenance environment, and then annotate that record with your own information, with whatever is relevant to your research. That data is then, at the end of the project, continue to be held at CERL, and therefore becomes part of your sustainability approach to a funded project. Like in MEI, also in HBB, you can include links to the PDA database. I mentioned the CERL blog at the top of this presentation. Quite a few people in our CERL network have written interesting blog posts about CERL data and how you can reuse it and how you can, what you can do with it, basically. And I've listed some of those presentations here, those blogs. These slides will become available online, and that will be an easy reference for you to the blog posts. If you have reused CERL data and want to write a blog post about it, I would be most grateful to receive it. And I wonder if you might be interested in keeping an eye on our Python library on GitHub, which is new. It was launched this year. It's called Bibliometa. So what next in the CERL context? Well, we're going to hopefully have an open API for MEI and our other hosted databases, all in the AMPL environment. We're going to publish the documentation for the REST API for the CERL thesaurus. There will be a small IIIF server to go with the PDA. We have an embryonic working group to talk with CERL members about how we create triples, because BibFrame is not the whole answer. We're going to, we like our manuscripts and archives list for online resources, but we realized that it could be expanded with information about IIIF availability. And if you have any information, I would love to hear it. And we're going to hopefully expand our Python library, Bibliometa. So if you have scripts that you would like to share, again, do contact me. Thank you very much for your attention, and enjoy the rest of the conference.